The airbase was buzzing with routine. Radio chatter, boots on gravel, and the faint roar of jets preparing for takeoff. But then silence. A hush swept through the corridors as a single medal, tucked away in a young officer's bag, was discovered. It wasn't just any medal. It carried a history that had been buried, a story that could change how everyone on that base saw her forever. The morning started like any other on the base. Boots struck the concrete with rhythmic precision as patrols switched shifts. Mechanics shouted over the shriek of jet engines. Their hands blackened with grease as they readied the F-16s for another sortie. It was a place built on discipline, routine, and silence when it mattered. But none of that prepared them for what was about to unfold. She walked across the hangar floor with her usual quiet confidence. Not a swagger, but a steady calm that had earned her respect, even from those who didn't know much about her. Her bag swung at her side, inconspicuous, nothing unusual for a young officer fresh from assignment. But when military police were called in for a random inspection, that calm rhythm of the day shifted. At first, it was just procedure. Empty the bag, line up the contents, quick and efficient. A notebook, a pair of gloves, an old photograph tucked into the side pocket. And then the clink of metal against the table. The officer's hand froze. There, gleaming under the harsh fluorescent light, was a medal. Not a standard commendation or training award. This was older, rarer, the kind of medal that most only read about in training manuals. The room changed in an instant. The chatter stopped. Tools were set down. Eyes locked on the table as the air thickened. Even the young airman who had been laughing minutes before now stood rigid, his gaze fixed on her. The sergeant leaned forward, his voice low but sharp. "Where did you get this?" No one moved. No one breathed. The silence of the base wasn't because of orders over the radio. It was because every man and woman in that hangar knew this medal carried a weight far beyond medal and ribbon. It was history, honor, and a secret someone had been trying to keep. And she, the quiet officer who had always kept to herself, was suddenly at the center of a storm she had never wanted to face. The sergeant's question echoed in her mind. Where did you get this? But how could she answer? The truth wasn't something she had ever intended to share within these walls. That medal wasn't hers. At least not in the traditional sense. It had belonged to someone else. Someone whose story was both a source of pride and a shadow that followed her everywhere. She remembered the first time she saw it. She had been much younger, standing in her grandfather's study. His uniform still hung on the wall, pressed and immaculate despite the decades that had passed. He never spoke much about his service, but when he did, it was with a quiet gravity that silenced everyone in the room. The medal rested in a small wooden box, its ribbon faded but its shine unbroken. Her grandfather had been part of a mission few knew about. Classified, dangerous, and nearly impossible. The official reports called it a success, but they left out the cost, the chaos, and the men who never returned. That medal was awarded not just for bravery, but for survival against odds no one believed were possible. It symbolized a story of sacrifice, one that had been buried by official silence and forgotten by history. When he passed away, the box was left to her. She didn't wear it, didn't display it, didn't even mention it. To her, it wasn't a trophy. It was a reminder, a weight, a secret. But here it was, uncovered in front of an entire hangar of soldiers who didn't understand. To them, it looked like stolen valor, as if she had taken something that didn't belong to her. The whispers started almost immediately. Why would she have that? Is she claiming it's hers? No way. Not someone like her. Her hands trembled, not from guilt, but from the knowledge that explaining would mean opening doors she had locked shut for years. The medal wasn't just a decoration. It was a link to a man who had taught her what real courage meant, even when the world refused to acknowledge it. And now, exposed under the harsh light of suspicion, she realized the hardest part wasn't the discovery. It was the choice she had to make. Stay silent and let the rumors grow, or tell a story that was never meant to be told. The medal lay on the inspection table like a live wire, charging the room with suspicion. Nobody dared touch it now. The sergeant, still looming over her, signaled for an officer higher up the chain. Within minutes, the hangar doors creaked open and in walked the base commander. A man known for his precision, his clipped words, and his intolerance for anything that disrupted order. He didn't waste time. "Whose medal is this?" he demanded. All eyes shifted to her. She could feel their stares like searchlights, scanning for weakness. Her throat tightened. She wanted to say it outright, that it was her grandfather's, that it carried a legacy, not a lie. But even before the words reached her lips, she knew what they would hear. Excuses. In a base where merit was earned through blood, sweat, and missions flown, carrying a medal without an official citation attached to your name was unthinkable. It was betrayal. It was fraud. The commander studied her carefully, his silence sharper than any accusation. Around them, whispers spread like wildfire. Some soldiers crossed their arms, their respect for her evaporating before her eyes. Others, younger and less certain, just looked confused. But then something unexpected happened. A single voice cut through the tension. "I know that medal," said an older master sergeant, stepping forward. His tone wasn't accusing, but solemn. "I've seen it before, decades ago. It belonged to a man they said saved his entire unit." The room shifted again. For the first time, suspicion gave way to curiosity. Heads turned, eyes narrowed, and the silence deepened. The commander raised an eyebrow. "Explain." The master sergeant's gaze locked on her, as if searching for confirmation. "It's not hers," he said carefully. "But if she carries it, there's a reason." Her chest tightened. The words gave her cover, but also pushed her to a breaking point. She couldn't hide behind silence anymore. This wasn't just about a medal, it was about what it represented, and why she had kept it so close. The fallout was just beginning. Rumors would spread through every corridor. Some would see her as a fraud, others as a mystery, and a few as someone carrying a burden too heavy to share. The commander's final words before dismissing the room were chilling. "We will get to the bottom of this." The base, once filled with the predictable rhythm of duty, now pulsed with unease. And at the center of it all was her. The woman who never asked for attention, now forced to confront the legacy of a medal that could either destroy her reputation or reveal a truth powerful enough to silence every doubt.